Hello, everyone. Welcome to On the Move, a show where we share transportation and logistics sales and marketing success stories. I'm Jennifer Carpus Romaine, Executive Director at the Transportation Marketing and Sales Association, which is a trade nonprofit educating and connecting marketing and sales professionals in the industry. And today we have on the show Leigh Sauter, who is the founder of Glassball Consulting. She's also the co-founder of Spark Change Lab and a marketing strategist at Virago Marketing. And she's also the treasurer of the board at the Transportation Marketing and Sales Association, a lady with many titles. How are you doing today? Welcome to the show, Leigh.
I like to keep busy,
Yeah, life really
Idle
keeps you
hands
on.
are the devil's work.
That's true. That's true. And it's funny because not only do you have so many titles today, you've actually had so many titles in the industry itself. You've worked kind of on all sides of transportation and logistics, especially in terms of marketing. You worked at multiple transportation and logistics firms, and then you branched out on the agency side before starting your own consulting firm, which has been really exciting to watch you grow as we, carry on in this industry together. So let's talk about all that experience. What got you into logistics? What kept you here? What kept you just, launching a lot of businesses?
Initiatives. Let's just call them
Initiatives.
Yeah, and even before I was in logistics, I was at a nonprofit, a not-for-profit, and a telecommunications giant. So it's kind of been all over the place. But there came a point where I was starting a family and proximity to home was really what I wanted. And so I looked around for any marketing job within, 20-mile radius. And within a mile from my house, there just happened to be a freight brokerage who wanted to hire a marketing director. And they had never had a marketing person before. And so here I had come from this team where I was just like a cog in the wheel, kind of like doing my one thing on the assembly line. And I had to go to this freight brokerage, figure out what a freight brokerage is, and figure out how to create a marketing department. And that meant like overhauling their brand and figuring out all their sales enablement materials. And then that led, once the marketing was stood up, I moved over to kind of figuring out customer satisfaction. How do we get referrals? How do we market to customers? And then that led me to think about employee engagement, because there's just such a connection really between how happy employees are and how happy customers are. So then I started kind of spinning that plate. And then I took the next most logical step in my mind in my career, which was to move to a much larger logistics company as marketing director. But as when I was there, I just felt so far away from decision making and kind of the business strategy. I didn't feel like I could make an impact as much as I wanted to. And so I joined, Virago Marketing, which is a supply chain marketing agency. I've worn all kinds of hats. Like, it's really taught me a lot about resourcefulness and, juggling many projects and many clients at the same time, and really has gotten me deeper into marketing than ever before. And it's gotten me closer to entrepreneurship than ever before, which then became a clear next step for me. And so that's why I kind of started Glassball Consulting, which is more focused on creating people-centric cultures, back to that, virtuous cycle of happy employees, happy customers, good marketing. That's what I'm really passionate about. So that's, the next chapter that I'm going after.
Well, I love that evolution so much. I think that I get bored easily too. And so being able to kind of bounce around and get different experiences. I definitely had that a similar experience where I kind of became a person in a bigger company, and I didn't get to have my hands in all the pots the way I did at a smaller company. That's kind of what brought me to TMSA and learning so many things every day, all the time. But I think that that's really important to kind of continue to work hard and figure out what you like, have different exposure points. So I love that then you brought that together into Glassball Consulting. So you mentioned it's really about driving those results through people and purpose, which is kind of the tag that you have on your website, which I love. And I do think it's really hard to resist the urge to get caught up in the day-to-day. So how do you encourage people not to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think most entrepreneurs, they start out with the best intentions. They have a clear vision. They probably have the values of why they started the business. And I just think sometimes when there is so much coming at you and all the day-to-day operations to run, that can start to get lost. And then you might not really realize that it's not translating until you have a wake-up call. And that could be in the form of like your culture feels off, or no one's bringing new ideas to the table, or your revenue is down and things just seem stagnant. And I think a lot of leaders, they're just so close to it that they aren't really sure what's going on. And those are my favorite problems to solve. Like, I really want to understand, untangle what is really going on at the heart of your organization. Is it transparency? Is it communication? Is it poor change management? What are those like core drivers that's really leading your business to not really have the desired impact that you want? And I think that in order to get the impact you want, you really need to be more people centric. And I know sometimes that can seem fluffy, but at the end of the day, they're the ones that are using your technology. It's nothing without them. And they're the ones that are going to be closest to the customer and circulating new ideas and figuring out how to adapt and evolve. I mean, like, as things evolve faster than ever. So yeah, it's just a problem I love to pick apart, attentions I love to run towards. And I'm really excited to be able to do more of it, because, you kind of just see it from a distance when you're doing marketing strategy. Like, I can see the relationship between marketing and sales and what might be off there. I can interview like different levels. I can get a sense that something else might be off. But now I can really kind of dive into that.
And so, whether it's talking about people or marketing or sales, what are some of those biggest trends you've seen over your tenure in the industry, and how are they affecting the companies, whether like positively or negatively?
I mean, from a marketing standpoint, it's like we have more social media channels now. Like, I was around when Instagram became a thing, and TikTok became a thing, and having to integrate all of the shiny new objects into your marketing strategy. One of the things I think that's evolved in a direction that I really like is kind of the idea of demand generation, which is really the idea of know your customer, put out the best, most informative, most helpful content you can. And when people are in market, they will find you. And it takes the emphasis off that like lead gen hamster wheel, which has its place in the ecosystem of marketing, but it's just not my preferred place to be. So I like that shift. And then, I mean, from a people perspective, I think I would have never in a million years believed that a lot of us would be remote, in supply chain roles. That was such a huge hurdle, like something most companies would never even consider. And it comes with a lot of like great things like flexibility, autonomy, but then it also comes with, it's difficult to bring people together around culture. It's difficult to collaborate like you might have. So that's been just an unprecedented shift, especially for our industry, for those that have embraced it anyway. And I think those that haven't, they at least have a piece of it that they never had.
Sure. And I agree. It can be really hard to engage with remote employees, especially if they're always going to be remote. Do you have advice for ways to make them feel a part of the team, especially when they're coming into a company, and to keep them engaged kind of in that like early stage of their tenure at your company?
I mean, I like to really dig into the company before I give blanket advice, but I'll just say overall, I think it is a focus on what are your communication channels and what are your consistent messages that you're trying to send about what you value and what results you're trying to drive. And I think leadership often just under communicates because they feel like they're saying these things over and over all day, but they're not saying them to everyone. And so you really need to be very strategic and intentional about getting that word out. And I think transparency too is another big thing that I think has shifted and that people expect or really appreciate is, when things are going on, to be looped in and not have like the rumor mill be a source of your information. I think you just really need to be connected with your people more than ever. And you have to find ways to become accessible to those people and just find a way to like keep hammering the right messages home.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I think it's important too to remember sometimes the simple things can go a long way. Like when I first would start in an office, one of the first things somebody would take me to lunch, somebody somewhere, or coffee or something. But those things aren't as easily ingrained if you're a remote worker. No one's there to just be like, oh, there's this new person standing in front of me. I should take them to lunch and ask them how they are. So one of the things I like to do is look up like a local coffee shop by a new employee's house. And if I can't find one, something that's, all over, and just like send them like, here's a coffee for our first meeting that we're going to have, because we're going to be sitting in this meeting for like hours together anyways, getting to know each other. So, but just like extending something even small to like let them know that you are thinking about them or engaging with them. I think little things like that can go a long way, even though it's so simple.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there should still be an emphasis on some in-person get-togethers. Like I really think that you should be getting together at least annually.
Mhm.
Um, but there are even ways you can integrate that coffee idea into technology. Like there are Slack plugins where you can automate matches between people. So every week it gives you a different match to have coffee with someone, which kind of randomizes things, makes it less awkward. It gives you the opportunity to connect with people on very different, you know, very different grounds than your regular meetings or collaboration sessions, like a personal kind of
Mhm.
touch.
I love that. I didn't know that you could do that in Slack.
Yeah.
That's really handy. I will think about that.
New things all the time.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that we have to think, okay, like what are some of the best things about joining a team or getting to know people, or how do we do that and how can we take that virtually? And I agree too, getting to actually meet. There is still something powerful about meeting people in person. And while me
Absolutely.
personally, like don't know if I could ever go work day to day in an office again. Like I need
Mhm.
to just roll out of my bed, get my coffee and come into my office and start my day. I do like to meet people face to face. Big strategy sessions are great that way because it's easier to bounce ideas off of. So you don't have to always be remote to still be a remote worker.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I love being in person. I just think being remote and from like a DEI perspective, it's just so much more inclusive of
Mhm.
parents and people who are taking care of aging parents, or really anyone who has a situation where kind of bagging out of work is frowned upon or needing to, let in the hot water man. It's just doesn't ignore life around you in the same way. I know I couldn't go back.
Right. And I think I work harder in my own space. Like
Me too.
I was actually just, I
And
was,
longer.
yeah, I was hanging out with like my nieces and nephews, and they're like in their late teens, early 20s, and was talking about that for me, I like working from home because, yeah, I watch like trashy Lifetime movies while I'm working. It's just something I do. I've done it in an office. People judge you. They both because they're like, are you working? And also they're like, what are you watching?
Yes.
Like, it's fine. The woman screaming is not me. It's in the TV. It's fine. But that's just that's how I focus. I don't know how. It's either like random music or background. Like I can't work in silence, and there's other people in office spaces who need to. And especially when I'm writing, like when I would be a copywriter, having people like come into my office just to say hello, like that's always distracting, and trying to explain that to people but not being rude, or closing your door because you need to focus when it's nice to have an open door policy so people always feel welcome. Like yes, people can be welcome, but I'm still trying to get my task done, and so it can cause these like unnecessary like awkward work environments. Whereas okay, no, like I just work from home, or even if it's like a hybrid environment where the days that I'm need to focus and write, those are the days I get to work from home or whatever. I also I have migraines all the time, and
Mhm.
there are days where I feel like I can work, but to drive a car I don't feel
Yeah.
comfortable doing that. And that's something that I would get in hurdles with previous employment, because I'd be like, I can work from home. They're like, you have to come to the office. I'm like, well, then I'm going to take a sick day and I'm going to go to bed. Like, I
Yeah.
don't, and I don't, it's a safety thing for me to drive a vehicle with the sun that is part of the trigger of the migraine, all that kind of stuff. So I think even if you don't have a fully remote environment, giving those opportunities and like working with people, they just feel more valued. and we'll work. Yeah, like I would work. I wouldn't take as much PTO time if I just got to work with migraine, which sounds crazy. I
Mhm.
should have taken a nap anyway, but um, or like take a half day or something. So I think those are important things to think about when we're thinking about our people, especially then when we're like, okay, how do we improve our retention? How do we make our
Mhm.
employees happy? Like just listening to them and seeing what their needs are to be most successful can go a really long way.
Yeah, I mean, and everyone is so different. Some people are extroverts, some people are introverts. Everybody has different situations at home. So just think all of the options that are out there now are just so much more supportive than, when I had young kids and I was in an office 40 hours a week, coming to work super sick or, and like just all those situations that they don't even exist anymore. And I'm so
Mhm,
grateful for that.
mhm. Me too. So it's funny, when I was building questions for your interview, I was thinking about how far we've both come in our careers since we met we were at a HubSpot inbound conference. I can't remember how many years ago, but it was a while ago.
Yeah.
And you had posted at the time, the way that TMSA members communicated was in like a Facebook group. And you're like, hey, I'm at the HubSpot user conference. Um, is anyone here? I want to like bounce ideas off of them. Like, yeah, I'm here too. And we met at what could only be described as a very sketchy breakfast place in downtown
Trailer.
Boston, which was amazing. Like the food was so good, but it
Mhm.
was like at the side of a warehouse kind of looking
Mhm.
situation that we found. But I really love like, and it's funny, like watching you rise through the ranks at TMSA, becoming treasurer of the board, launching your initiatives, and then like me transitioning into the executive director role at TMSA. How do you think your journey with TMSA has helped shape your career?
Yeah, it's like, look at us, look how grown up we
Look at
are.
us now. We're so grown up.
Yeah, I would still have breakfast in a trailer,
Me
like
too. It
that
was
was
so good.
stay humble. Yeah, that place had good reviews, but then walking up there, it was like, this wasn't really a business venue for
Yeah,
a for
no.
breakfast. But both of us were like, whatever. Um, yeah, I mean, so at that conference, I was a one-person marketing team. When I was first a member of TMSA, it was a one-person marketing team. So I lived in a vacuum. I felt like I had no one really to like educate myself with or bounce ideas off of. And it's intimidating and you just don't really have especially when you're new. So I threw myself into TMSA. The first conference I went to was like, okay, I got to figure out this industry. I need to make as many connections as possible. I need to learn as much as possible. And it was there that I feel like I got the confidence and the knowledge I needed to do what needed to be done in logistics because it's a different animal. I mean, I was thinking to myself, like, I wonder if there's any marketer in TMSA who hasn't posted a picture of like the wrong truck in their marketing, like a European truck or
Mhm.
like we've all done it and we've all had our hands slapped because it's very specific. Like these things are the terms and the systems so TMSA just helped me really navigate all of that. It gave me all of these peers to call on. And I'm sure you agree that the people are so generous at TMSA, like to share their knowledge, to work things out with you. Like even when I moved to a bigger company, I remember emailing somebody else saying, "You're at a big company. How did you pitch TMSA?" And they wrote right back. Um, and it's just such it's been such a great place where I've professionally grown in this industry and made so many connections that are like personal friends too.
Mhm.
So yeah, I've been very grateful through my time at TMSA really. And then I became treasurer. So I was
Mhm.
like, even like professional growth in that way. When there was a role on the finance team, I thought to myself, that's a skill set that I think would be really advantageous to me to add and hone. And I've learned so much, and now I feel even more prepared to do my own finances and my own business because of that experience. So there are just so many more opportunities to um, get great things out of TMSA.
I love that. And I feel the same way. Like for me, I was a member first, and then part of why I wanted to kind of throw my hat in the ring to become the executive director was just because of the people. And I loved working with everyone every day. I feel like the TMSA community is who I like actively talked through COVID because of my participation in multiple committees at the
Yeah.
time. And like probably talked to the TMSA world more than a lot of people in my own because of that. So I love it. I love still hearing those comments from brand new people coming into TMSA from the people who've been around a long time. So I love that. And I'm excited because at our upcoming executive summit, you will actually be doing a workshop through your Spark Change Lab initiative. So I would love for you to talk a little bit more about that. And I think, is this your first time presenting at TMSA? I think
I
so,
think
right?
so. I've done, roundtable discussions, the real low stakes stuff.
But
So
I was like, as I was looking, like, I'm pretty sure, like,
yeah,
I know that you pretended, you sat on the
mhm,
stage and at Elevate, and you're like,
we did.
this is my pretend session, and we're like, well, guess what? You should do a real one. So tell us a little bit about it and what you're looking forward
Yeah, I'm definitely pushing out of my comfort zone. I don't love speaking, but here we are. So yeah, Spark Change Lab really came about actually from a TMSA connection. I went to a session hosted by Beth from Drive My Way, and I just loved the way she facilitated the session. I thought she was just so on top of it. It was such a really rich breakout session. And so I got in touch with her and we just started, having kind of a mentor relationship outside of TMSA. And we're just interested in a lot of the same things. And we saw in the same way some of the things that supply chain industry could really improve on from a people-centric standpoint. And so earlier this year, we just started brainstorming. We're both problem solvers. We both are like, put us in, coach, let us figure it out. So we were like, what if we did, a live webinar experience where we take a problem and we get the right experts in the room and we actively work together to solve it and brainstorm and really get a resolution. And I just loved the idea of that. Like, okay, here's a first step with all of the right people in the room. And so we've done that for how to create cultures that are welcoming to veterans, like how to become a veteran ready company. We've done it with people who might be considering mergers and acquisitions, just these like big, sticky issues. And what we're hoping to do is bring it internally because, if you have an issue, like I was mentioning, something's wrong internally. I think it could be a great tool, like a great safe space to get people together, have, seasoned facilitators, and really let's break down the problem and make some headway. And so for the executive summit, we thought, what a great chance to kind of show this in real time, live. And the issue I think that we're going to tackle is how to elevate marketing and supply chain, because year after year, I see the same types of frustration in terms of, marketing is a trash can department. I'm doing internal comms, I'm doing premiums, I'm doing administrative work. And oh, by the way, I'm also doing a little marketing on the side.
to.
And like I really believe, especially as a marketing strategist, that marketing should have and needs to have a seat at the table. And so we're hoping to kind of get to the root of how can you, what are some strategies to elevate yourself and your function, and how do you show that value? How do you propel yourself up? How do you set boundaries around things that are not marketing? So I'm excited to bring some outside experts that from other industries, some seasoned people within TMSA to really talk through that issue and hopefully give everyone in the room some ideas for how they might go about that in their own lives, and they can action it as soon as they get home. That's really the whole goal, is to give you something like tangible.
Mhm. I love that. This is the first time we've done a kind of extended workshop like this at Executive Summit. And so you guys will be handling the marketing one, and we'll have a sales side one that we will announce very soon as well. So really excited for that. If someone has never been to a TMSA event or specifically Executive Summit, why would you recommend them coming to conference?
I think it's really the opportunity to have that kind of high level content. So there's a lot you can educate people on around marketing metrics, but where are you going to brainstorm with all of the other marketing leaders on something like that, on something like, how do I get the CEO's ear, or how do I really show results? And then, of course, you're launching that benchmark study as well. And I always found that to be so important in educating like my higher ups into what everyone else was doing, what a marketing budget looks like, what a marketing team should look like. And there's no better driver of action for a CEO when you're like, well, look what all your friends are doing. You're falling behind. And the benchmark study just really, it benchmarks, it helps you know where you are and maybe how you can mature, and gives you some ideas and some like really powerful just firepower to help people. So yeah, I think, and the networking. I would be remiss to not mention the networking. It's such a great group of people, and you can really form relationships with people on your level that you're going to grow and mature with, like me and you.
Yes. Absolutely. So this year's Executive Summit is October 10th through 11th in Hoboken, New Jersey. In case you don't know about TMSA's benchmarking study, it is, we do it every other year, and it benchmarks the sales and marketing inside this industry. And the full benchmarking report is exclusive to TMSA members, but myself and our partner who's helping with the benchmarking study, Sarah O'Hearn at Path Growth, will be doing a session at Executive Summit saying, hey, this is the data we found and what we think it actually means and what you guys should do about it. So really excited to present that. And I've been looking at the early data of that benchmarking study over the past few weeks. So it's been pretty exciting to see what is coming next. So last question for you, Leigh, which is my favorite question to ask everybody. And I do ask every person who has come either on the move or on the LinkedIn Lives before we launch the official show. But if you could go back in time and advise a younger Leigh anything, either personally or professionally, what would you tell her?
Enjoy the journey. You alluded to how much I've kind of hopped around, and I will say I've spent multiple years typically at each position. It's not
correct. It's not like it was like a month and jump. Yeah.
Older than I look, I like to think. No, but it's just enjoy the journey. It's not so much about the destination. I think I've learned so much, and when you look back, it all makes sense. But when you're in it, you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? Where am I going? And I think it's, trust your intuition and trust yourself. And when I look back, I'm just so proud of how many different challenges I've tackled, how many different ways I've creeped out of my day-to-day job to learn other things. And, it all comes full circle when you become an entrepreneur. In that it's just, you have this depth and breadth of knowledge that really helps you, assess businesses and figure out what's going on and create these change management plans. And so, yeah, just enjoy the journey, I guess, is my somewhat cliche answer.
I think it's cliche for a reason. It's good advice, and living in the moment. Just I always think 80 steps ahead, but sometimes it's good just to take a breath and live for today. So I think that's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and all that you do for TMSA. If anyone listening is interested in being on a guest, you can scan this QR code right here, and you can submit to be on the show as well. We love highlighting transportation and logistics success stories, especially highlighting what our members are doing and all the awesome things that they have going on. So if you want to hang out with me and Leigh in Hoboken, you can. I will pop that QR code up one more time, October 10th through 11th. We are really excited about Executive Summit. And thank you so much for coming on the show today.